Wiki of channelinginc.com, and today I would like to talk about the difference between experiential learning and didactic teaching. So there's two different basically styles of learning, and I'm not saying one's better than the other or anything like that. One of them is the way that we were taught when we were kids. So I don't know how it was for you growing up, but the way I was taught was, you have the teacher standing at the whiteboard talking to you all day for 6 hours or 8 hours, however long that day was, 5 days a week, day in, day out. That's called didactic teaching. So it's basically an intellectual way of learning where they talk to you, they tell you about this, they tell you about that, they tell you about this, and then they do an exam and a quiz and assignments and things like that on that topic. And it's basically, reading from a book or listening to the teacher talk. So that's called didactic teaching. What I do is quite a bit different than most teachers out there. And again, I'm not saying one's better than the other. It's just different. And the way that I teach is what's called experiential teaching. And the reason why I teach this way is because what I want to do is I want people to actually experience what it's like to actually, so they get to know it on a deeper level. And what I mean by this is, yes, we'll talk about, for example, in my case, I teach people how to channel. So we'll talk about channeling, we'll talk about your spirit guides, we'll talk about your soul family, all those other topics. We'll talk about angels and crystals and crystal divas and stuff like that. But instead, I'll actually have you experience it. So that this way, when, for example, when we're talking or communicating with your spirit guides, we can talk about your spirit guides and what they are and what they do. But instead, what I do is I'll have you actually go ahead and feel what it's like to actually know where they are physically in your room. And now what's really cool we have modern technology that can prove where our spirit guides are on camera. So what you're actually experiencing is actually real. So you can actually put your hand into your guide and you can feel the difference from when your hand's here and then when you go ahead and put your hand physically into your guide and you're like, whoa, like that's really cool because you're experiencing it. And then you can also experience how they sound in your mind, which is their voice sounds different than your own thoughts, how you can see them through what's called clairvoyance, how you see them in your mind's eye, and so on and so on. So that's called experiential learning. And then this way, as a teacher, I want to teach my students to learn this way. So when I'm not around, they're like, oh yeah, I remember in Ken's classes that I would notice my guide and I'd be able to know that it's this guide because I've noticed the difference in the energy signatures is what I call it. And I've experienced it in Ken's class. This way, when I'm on my own, I can actually know what it's like when Ken's not around. And that's good. That's great. That's what I want for all my students. And we're not talking about just how to identify your spirit guides, but everything. So for example, I do a lot of really cool exercises in my workshops around things that are very transformative. And what this does is it actually changes you on a cellular level, on a molecular level, on a DNA genetic level in a very good way. And it helps to build your confidence and strengthen your skills and your overall life purpose because you're experiencing it over and over and over. How do they do these different things? How to improve your skill sets, and you actually get to practice it and play with it and then embody it. And that's where I want to get all my students is at the most optimal stage is where you actually are embodying it. So I've done channeling for so long that I don't actually do channeling anymore. I become it. I am it. It's just a part of me, and it's a part of my everyday life. And this is where I want all my students to get. And you do this by what? By experiencing it over and over, by practicing it over and over, by actually feeling into it and actually embodying and integrating it into all your aspects until eventually it just becomes an everyday part of your lifestyle in everything that you do. So this is the difference between didactic teaching and experiential teaching. And if you would like to learn how to channel your spirit guides or any topics to do with spirituality in a very experiential way, please visit my website at channelinginc.com. And my name is Ken Lewicki. Have a wonderful day.